Amid the glow of screens and the arrogance of someone who always had everything handed to him, Adrian Cole's life changes drastically when a public scandal exposes his conceit. Son of the powerful technology magnate Edward Cole, he seemed untouchable, until an unexpected punishment forces him to work anonymously in a repair shop in Manchester. Accustomed to luxury, comfort, and constant praise, Adrian now faces grease, tools, and the harsh reality of a place where no one cares about his last name. What was meant to be just a punishment becomes a wake-up call strong enough to shake his deepest convictions. What happens when a spoiled heir is forced to prove his worth among people who will not tolerate arrogance? Curious to find out how this emotional story ends? Like, comment, and share. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps us inspired to keep captivating you. Tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel and become part of our story. As soon as Adrian Cole steps through the gates of the Manchester repair shop, his presence draws attention. A perfectly pressed dress shirt, expensive shoes, and a look of deep boredom make him seem as if he's about to perform in a show far beneath his standards. Yet within minutes, the contrast between his luxurious life and the shop's gritty routine becomes a spectacle of its own. When he tries to lift a simple toolbox, he drops everything, scattering wrenches and bolts across the floor as co-workers watch, some hiding quiet laughs. Helena Davis, the supervisor, studies him from a distance with a stern gaze, already sensing the challenge of keeping this newcomer under control. Determined to test him, the crew assigns him easy tasks, but even the simplest jobs turn into disasters. Asked to change a car's oil, Adrian, completely clueless, opens the wrong reservoir and pours the fluid into the engine, sending a thick cloud of smoke through the shop. Amid coughing and shouts, chaos erupts, and instead of apologizing, he tries to justify himself. Real machines should be more intuitive. The team bursts out laughing while Helena reprimands him coolly, making it clear there's no room for excuses here. It doesn't take long for more blunders to follow. Distracted by his phone while pushing a cart of parts, Adrian fails to see a ramp ahead. The cart picks up speed, crashes into a shelving unit, and sets off a domino effect that scatters components everywhere. The loud crash draws curious looks from customers and employees alike. Nervous and sweating, Adrian tries to cover it with an awkward smile, but every movement betrays his total lack of skill. The spoiled heir is trapped in a world where his wealth and name mean nothing. With each mistake, the laughter grows, and so does his co-workers' impatience. Many begin to wonder whether he was actually hired or just wandered in by accident. Adrian, meanwhile, feels the sting of disdain for the first time in his life. In his comfortable world, he was always indulged, even when he failed. Now, every slip brings cruel jokes or sharp rebukes. For the first time, he realizes he has no control. The peak of his early days comes when he's told to park a freshly repaired car. Gripping the wheel as if it were a rare jewel, Adrian attempts a confident maneuver but misjudges the distance and scrapes the vehicle's side against the shop wall. The screeching sound rings out like a warning. He doesn't belong here. Shouts and angry glares follow instantly. Helena strides toward the car, her steps firm, and with just a few words makes it clear that his incompetence will no longer be tolerated. Adrian swallows his pride and, for the first time, falls silent before someone unafraid to confront him. Even amid the chaos, there's something unintentionally funny about his efforts. His attempts to project confidence lead to absurd moments that spark involuntary laughter even from those most frustrated. He wears the coveralls incorrectly, trips over his own laces, and even holds a power drill backward. Each gesture turns him into a bumbling character, lost on a stage he doesn't understand. Yet behind the laughter, a question lingers. Can he learn, or will he remain nothing more than a burden? The shop itself, with the smell of grease, the roar of machines, and relentless pressure for results, becomes a battleground for Adrian. His first days are marked by a string of unending mistakes. But though he doesn't realize it yet, each disaster carries a small lesson. The pride that once shielded him begins to crack, giving way to a strange, almost painful frustration. Amid the laughter and reprimands, Adrian discovers that the real world doesn't forgive arrogance, and his survival will depend on something he's never truly possessed: humility. These early mishaps not only reveal his fragility, but also stir the curiosity of those around him. Why would someone so clumsy take a job like this? The answer, still unknown to everyone, will eventually make sense of every misstep. For now, the disguised heir keeps stumbling, unintentionally becoming the center of attention in the shop. Helena Davis watches Adrian with the look one reserves for a puzzle, a mix of forced patience and disbelief. At 29, used to running the shop with discipline and the respect she's earned, she has dealt with inattentive apprentices, lazy co-workers, and arrogant clients. But Adrian is different. His lack of awareness borders on the absurd, and yet there's something about him that unsettles her, as if he doesn't belong here and was placed in her path precisely to challenge her authority. Within the first days, Helena decides to take on the mission of making him at least somewhat useful, not out of pity, but out of necessity. If left unchecked, he could put the entire shop at risk. And so, almost militarily, she begins to guide his every step. "There's no room for distractions here," she says firmly, taking his phone and handing him a wrench. Adrian rolls his eyes but obeys, still wearing an air of indignation. From that moment, Helena develops a method that blends strict discipline with small doses of encouragement. She forces him to repeat basic tasks dozens of times until he gets them right. When a tire needs changing, Adrian must remove and replace it more than once under her watchful eye and sharp comments that swing between irony and blunt criticism. "You're holding that wrench like a pen, not a tool," she chides, drawing laughter from the other workers. Yet behind her tough exterior, she observes his clumsy efforts with growing interest. Adrian, for his part, begins to feel something new: the pressure of someone unmoved by his last name, someone who refuses to bow to his arrogance. He, who has always known women drawn to his status, now faces a supervisor who treats him like any rookie, perhaps even worse. This attitude unsettles Adrian deeply, yet it sparks a strange urge to prove he isn't a lost cause. With every sharp remark from Helena, part of his pride is wounded, but another part rises to the challenge. Mornings become a ritual. Helena arrives before everyone, organizes the task board, and prepares the list of duties Adrian must handle. When he finally shows up, usually late, she folds her arms and stares in silence until he feels the weight of her gaze. He tries jokes and sarcastic comments, but Helena remains unmoved. Her cool demeanor dismantles any attempt at charm. Gradually, Adrian realizes he needs a different strategy. If he wants even a shred of respect, he'll have to follow orders. Among the crew, their relationship becomes a topic of gossip. Some say Helena is too hard on him, while others admit that without her strictness he would have quit by now. She holds her ground, even as she feels the burden of shaping someone so unpredictable. And to her own surprise, she starts noticing small changes. Adrian no longer drops every tool. He mixes up parts less often. He begins to listen before acting. Each improvement is small but visible to those watching closely. There are moments, however, when Helena's patience is stretched thin. One day, while tightening a bolt, Adrian applies too much force and breaks the part, ruining an entire job. Helena takes a deep breath, fights the urge to yell, and calmly explains what he should have done. Adrian watches in silence and, for the first time, apologizes without a trace of irony, a small gesture that surprises everyone, including himself. As the weeks pass, the shop grows accustomed to seeing them work together. Helena barking orders, Adrian stumbling, standing up and trying again. Their dynamic creates a curious energy, equal parts irritation and a reluctant partnership. When a customer compliments a simple repair Adrian completed, Helena can't hide a faint smile, though she quickly masks it with another critique. Don't get excited. You still have a lot to learn. This dance between severity and recognition begins shaping a new version of Adrian. What once felt like humiliation turns into a personal challenge. Helena's presence acts like an unforgiving mirror, reflecting his flaws but also revealing the possibility of growth. She offers no privileges, no shortcuts, and because of that, every small success feels genuinely earned. One afternoon, after hours of repetitive practice, Adrian finally completes a task that once seemed impossible, replacing a car's brake system on his own. Exhausted, he looks to Helena for approval. She offers no praise, only a brief nod before jotting a note on her clipboard. That simple, almost imperceptible gesture carries more weight for Adrian than all the flattery of his life of luxury. For the first time, he feels genuine pride in something achieved through his own effort. Slowly, Helena stops seeing him purely as a burden. She still finds him irritating and immature, but she recognizes a spark of determination in him, a discovery that surprises her. Beneath the arrogant facade, there is someone capable of learning. Yet she remains steadfast. Respect will come only when he proves he deserves it. And so, amid constant mistakes, harsh corrections, and small victories, a relationship marked by tension and discipline begins to take shape. Helena, with her unyielding firmness, becomes the guide forcing Adrian to confront his own fragility. He, with his arrogance breaking apart, starts to realize that for the first time he is not the center of the world. The repair shop stops being just a punishment and becomes a training ground where supervisor and spoiled heir engage in a silent duel of wills. Deep down, every scolding from Helena is an invitation to change, and every failed attempt from Adrian is a seed ready to sprout under the pressure of a woman who never tolerates excuses. Despite the constant reprimands and the shame of repeated blunders, Adrian begins to feel the need to prove he's more than dead weight. Wounded pride pushes him to show that he can be competent, if only to challenge the supervisor who gives him no respite. But his arrogance and inexperience remain huge obstacles, turning each effort into a spectacle of failure that tests everyone's patience. One morning, he arrives earlier than usual, determined to impress. On his own, he decides to change a car's oil without waiting for instructions. Confident he's doing it right, he removes unnecessary parts, opens the wrong compartments, and creates a tangle of loose wires and scattered pieces. When Helena finds the scene, she swallows her anger to keep control in front of the staff. With a firm voice, she orders him to stop immediately, and in minutes, reassembles what Adrian had spent an hour dismantling. The atmosphere is thick with embarrassment, but Adrian refuses to give up. In the days that follow, he tries to impress her with every task. Assigned to clean the tools, he polishes them until they shine, expecting praise. Instead, he uses the wrong product and rusts half the equipment, forcing the shop to buy replacements. Helena's cool comment, "We need efficiency here, not vanity," hits him like an arrow. But rather than retreat, Adrian hardens his resolve, silently vowing to earn a different reaction. Another incident occurs when a customer arrives to pick up a car while Helena is busy. Eager to prove himself, Adrian volunteers to explain the repair. He invents technical terms, describes systems that don't exist, and promises warranties the shop can't honor. The customer leaves more confused than when he arrived, and when Helena hears what happened, she spares no sharp words. "Your mouth is more dangerous than any tool in your hands." Her rebuke echoes through the shop, and Adrian shrinks as co-workers stifle their laughter. Yet something new shows in his posture. Once, he would have walked away from anything that threatened his ego. Now, no matter how humiliating the experience, he stays, using each setback as fuel to try again. Helena notices this stubbornness, and, though she keeps her relentless tone, she begins to understand that Adrian is not just a spoiled heir sent to serve a sentence. There is an almost childlike persistence in him that won't let him quit. The peak of these early clashes comes on a busy Saturday when the shop is flooded with cars. Helena assigns quick tasks to everyone, including Adrian, who gets the simple job of changing a tire. Determined to prove he's mastered the technique, he works quickly, draws attention from co-workers, and finishes ahead of schedule. Proud, he waits for recognition. But when the car is tested, the tire comes off after only a few meters. The furious customer storms back, and Helena, eyes flashing, calls Adrian to the center of the shop. In front of everyone, she explains each mistake and, without raising her voice, makes him feel the full weight of his responsibility. Adrian lowers his head, swallowing the heavy taste of shame. This episode marks a decisive turning point between them. Helena, though furious, notices in Adrian's eyes not only arrogance, but a flash of genuine frustration. He doesn't argue or try to defend himself, he simply listens. In that silence, she senses a fragile thread of humility. The following days are tense. Adrian stops making jokes and avoids direct confrontations, yet keeps looking for ways to prove his worth. He rushes to help when Helena carries heavy boxes, only to spill part of the contents on the floor. When she needs to review reports, he offers to sort the paperwork but mixes up service orders, creating more confusion. Each failed attempt adds friction, but also strengthens an odd connection. She remains the strict supervisor, he, the stubborn trainee who refuses to give up. Between mistakes and reprimands, a tension grows that has little to do with work. Watching Adrian persist despite setbacks, Helena begins to question her own judgment. She still sees arrogance, yet his vulnerability sparks curiosity. Adrian, accepting each critique, starts to view Helena not as a harsh overseer, but as someone who embodies a world where respect is earned, never bought. The whole shop feels the shift. The once laughable heir now provokes quiet debates. Some insist he will never adapt. Others see the possibility of change in his persistence. For now, reality remains hard. Adrian fails more than he succeeds, and Helena is still his greatest challenge. Their clashes become inevitable, shaping the future between them. She is demanding and tireless, guarding an environment that forgives no mistakes. He stumbles but refuses to quit. The collision of their worlds sparks constant tension, and something unexpected neither can name. Among grease, scoldings, and clumsy efforts, Adrian tastes the bitter truth of failing in front of someone unimpressed by his last name. And Helena, almost against her will, starts to recognize a man in transformation behind the facade. Weeks pass, and the constant friction becomes the fuel of the story. Every argument less a battle of egos than a prelude to something greater. What began as open warfare now carries a subtler energy. Glances held too long, silences heavy with meaning. The first sign appears on a day of pounding rain, when floodwaters trap them inside after most co-workers have gone. Working side by side for hours, they share tools and few words. The silence, once awkward, grows unexpectedly comfortable. When the power cuts and the shop falls into half-light, Adrian lets out a nervous laugh. Helena laughs too. For the first time, they share something other than scolding or sarcasm. Another moment comes when Adrian, exhausted after hours of heavy labor, sinks into a corner and admits he's never done anything with his own hands and feels useless. Helena hears the vulnerability in his voice. She doesn't console him, only offers a blunt truth. Uselessness stays only if you let it. For Adrian, the words feel like a hidden encouragement, and for the first time, he senses that she believes he can change. They still argue and tease, but the tension between them is no longer just confrontation. It's closeness. When Adrian finally repairs a complex part flawlessly, Helena's faint smile of pride warms him more than any praise. Small gestures weave an invisible thread between them. Co-workers notice. Where once Adrian was a constant nuisance, now he shows real effort, and Helena no longer treats him with pure coldness. Quick looks, hushed conversations, and a new energy ripple through the shop. Jokes turn from mockery to playful hints of something more. Helena ignores them, keeping her composure, while Adrian secretly enjoys the thought. One Saturday, a demanding customer shouts at Helena for immediate service. Before thinking, Adrian steps in, defending her with firm words. Surprised, the man backs off, and Helena handles the situation professionally. Afterward, she gives Adrian a look of mixed surprise and gratitude. She says nothing, but he feels he's earned a different place in her heart. Their arguments continue, but carry a different charge. When they clash over a repair mistake, voices rise, yet neither steps back. The anger is edged with something else, as if each quarrel draws them closer. On a late night finishing a car engine, Helena watches Adrian fight exhaustion. Hands black with grease, sweat streaking his brow, yet refusing to stop. Seeing the once untouchable heir working like any other mechanic, she feels a respect she can't hide. When he cracks a joke to lighten the mood, she laughs. Not as a supervisor, but as a woman. The sound echoes through the empty shop, marking a quiet change. Adrian now sees her differently. No longer just the stern boss who humiliated him, Helena is a strong, dedicated woman who earned respect on her own. He notices her rare smiles, the small gestures of care beneath her strictness, and each one fascinates him. The shop becomes a stage for growing closeness. Accidental brushes of hands when passing tools, prolonged glances amid the work, silences that no longer weigh them down. Both feel the chemistry, yet neither dares to speak. Helena fears mixing feelings with work. Adrian fears crossing a line. Still, the energy hums between them, pulsing in every interaction. The co-workers whisper among themselves, fueling rumors. Helena pretends not to hear, but deep down, she knows there's truth in the insinuations. Adrian, on the other hand, dedicates himself even more, as if determined to prove not only his competence, but also that he is worthy of standing beside her. And so, between heated arguments and small gestures of care, an unexpected connection begins to form. It's not love yet, nor pure friendship, but something in between, built on tension, emerging respect, and restrained desire. Adrian and Helena continue on a collision course, but now, with every spark between them, there is also a new warmth, impossible to ignore. The workshop, once merely a stage for humiliation, transforms into a territory of discovery, where they start to see each other beyond the masks they carry, even if neither admits it. The atmosphere in the shop seems to stabilize. Adrian, once the clumsy newcomer, now performs tasks with more confidence, and Helena, still strict, no longer has to intervene at every step. Their coexistence reaches a curious balance. Amid provocations, scoldings, and small victories, a bond becomes increasingly evident, though neither confesses it. But this balance is fragile, sustained by a secret Adrian has carried since day one, his true identity. The revelation comes unexpectedly on an ordinary morning. An important client enters the shop with an assistant, and upon seeing Adrian, immediately recognizes him. The man greets him loudly. "Adrian Cole! I didn't expect to find the son of magnate Edward Cole in a place like this." The silence that follows is suffocating. All eyes turn to Adrian, who freezes at the words. Helena, tools in hand, remains motionless, staring at him as if trying to piece together a puzzle. Adrian tries to cover it up, but it's too late. Murmurs ripple through the workshop. Co-workers exchange surprised glances. The news spreads in seconds like wildfire. Helena, still stunned, walks toward him and asks in a low but firm voice, "Is it true?" His hesitant expression answers before he speaks. "Yes, I'm the owner's son." The impact is immediate. Helena steps back, as if struck. Her heart races, not because of his fortune, but because of the lie that accompanied it. All those days of shared work, every argument, every effort she believed genuine, now feel tainted by deceit. The trust she had slowly built crumbles before her eyes. Adrian tries to explain. He says his father forced him to work anonymously, that he needed to prove his worth without relying on the family name. But the words feel empty to Helena. You made me believe you were just an apprentice, here by choice. All along you were the heir we all served indirectly. She snaps, her voice firm but laden with disappointment. The co-workers step back, respecting the tension. Some whisper. Others watch silently, curious about what will happen next. For Helena, however, there is no audience, no stage. There is only the open wound of deceit. She feels as if she allowed someone masked into her life, someone who gradually lowered her guard. Now, everything seems manipulation. Desperate, Adrian insists. His mistakes were real, his effort genuine, every scolding and every victory meaningful. But Helena cannot hear past the sound of betrayal. To her, hiding his identity is not a small detail. It's proof he never truly trusted her. From that moment, their relationship fractures. Helena avoids contact, speaks only when necessary, and resumes her professional demeanor with an even colder edge. Adrian feels the distance grow into an insurmountable barrier. The looks that once held tension and complicity now become walls of indifference. He tries to approach, to explain repeatedly, but every attempt is met with short, harsh words. The workshop itself changes. Some employees glance at Adrian with suspicion, others with quiet admiration, but all know nothing will be the same. The heir is no longer just the clumsy newbie. He is the owner's son, a man who carries power without needing to ask. This shadow weighs heavier on his shoulders, because it's not what he intended to prove. Nights become unbearable. Adrian thinks of Helena, of her disappointed gaze, of the coldness in her words. He realizes the lie he thought small, meant to protect his mission, has become the greatest obstacle in his life. Too late, he learns that trust is more valuable than any effort, and without it, no bond can survive. Helena, for her part, tries to convince herself to move on. She repeats that she cannot involve herself with someone who deceived her. That distance is necessary. Yet, deep down, the pain she feels is not only from being deceived, but also from realizing she had begun to develop feelings she is unwilling to admit. Anger becomes armor to hide hurt, but it cannot erase the memory of moments when he made her laugh or showed genuine vulnerability. The atmosphere remains heavy for days. Adrian arrives, works silently, follows orders without question, yet the energy between them has completely changed. The space that once felt like a place of discovery is now cold, filled with invisible barriers. The revelation of the truth not only shatters trust, but calls into question everything they have shared until now. Thus, the secret Adrian carried from the start explodes like a bomb, destroying the most fragile and precious thing, the slow construction of trust and respect. Helena retreats into her armor, and Adrian finds himself alone, facing not only the disapproval of colleagues, but, above all, the rejection of the one person he truly wanted to impress. The bond that seemed to grow amid mistakes and laughter becomes a distant memory, and the bitter certainty settles in Adrian's heart. Winning Helena back will be far more difficult than learning any repair in the shop. The distance between Adrian and Helena stretches on, creating a void that feels irreversible. The silence between them weighs heavier than any previous argument. She, determined to maintain her professional posture, limits herself to giving brief, precise instructions, leaving no room for dialogue or closeness. Adrian, meanwhile, feels the weight of solitude even among so many co-workers, as if the environment has lost all color. His desire to regain her trust grows daily, but words always seem insufficient against the disappointment he caused. It is in this cold atmosphere that a new problem arises, testing not only the shop's skills, but also Adrian's character. An old supplier arrives, offering parts below market price. At first glance, the deal seems advantageous, but Helena senses something wrong. The quality is unreliable, and in past cases, this supplier had been involved in fraudulent practices. She refuses outright, stating she won't risk the workshop's reputation for a dubious saving. However, some employees, tempted by the prospect of greater profit, begin to pressure for the purchase. Arguments erupt in the hallways, and rumors circulate quietly that Helena is too inflexible. Adrian observes everything silently until he realizes this is his chance to act differently, to prove that he can be loyal not only in words, but through concrete actions. He decides to investigate the supplier on his own. He uses the resources of his privileged position, but this time not as an heir, rather as someone determined to protect the place where he has finally found purpose. He collects documents, talks to contacts he had before starting at the workshop, and uncovers compromising information. The supplier had indeed been adulterating parts and had previously faced legal action for contract fraud. Armed with the evidence, Adrian takes everything directly to Helena. The scene is tense. He approaches her desk with a folder in his hands, feeling the weight of the recent rejection. "I need you to see this," he says, his voice firm. Helena stares at him coldly but opens the papers and examines each document. As she reads, she realizes that her suspicions were justified, but she also notices something else, Adrian's effort to confirm her intuitions. For a moment, the silence between them feels different. The hardness of their distance is gone, replaced by a pause heavy with reflection. Helena looks up and asks, "Why did you do this?" Adrian takes a deep breath before replying, "Because despite everything, I respect you. I respect the workshop, and I won't let anyone tarnish the work you built with so much effort." The words, sincere and straightforward, hit her unexpectedly. Helena tries to maintain her rigid stance but cannot ignore the gesture. Adrian did not seek public recognition, nor did he try to boast. He did what was right, even if it couldn't erase the mistakes of the past. In the following days, internal tensions ease. With the evidence presented, the supplier is dismissed, and Helena's decision is reinforced. The employees who had silently criticized her now recognize her prudence. Adrian, although not openly celebrated, feels that his initiative has brought stability back to the team. But more important than the approval of colleagues is the small opening created between him and Helena. She has not forgotten the initial lie, but she begins to see that perhaps the version of Adrian she met in the workshop was not entirely a facade. In small gestures, she starts addressing him beyond instructions. These are not long or intimate conversations, but the impenetrable wall from before is no longer there. One evening, when the workshop is nearly empty, Helena finds Adrian finishing a repair that wasn't his responsibility. He is focused, covered in grease, yet visibly committed. "You don't need to stay this late," she comments, surprised by her own approach. Adrian looks up and smiles, tired. "Maybe I need to. Not just to learn, but to prove that I'm not here for fun." The simple sentence resonates within her. Helena realizes that her struggle is not against an arrogant heir playing worker, but against a man who, despite his privileges, chose to face the harsh reality of the workshop floor. For the first time, she allows herself to look beyond the disappointment. This episode becomes a turning point. It does not mean everything is resolved, but it shows that trust, although shaken, can be rebuilt gradually. Helena begins to see that Adrian is not willing to give up, that he is ready to endure rejection while proving, through actions, that he deserves a second chance. The workshop environment also changes. The supplier incident exposed the team's vulnerability, but also reinforced the importance of honesty and unity. Adrian, without realizing it, earns the respect of many who previously saw him only as an intruder. There are still critics, but they no longer treat him with the same disdain. Between him and Helena, the silence is now less bitter. Conversations are still cautious, but they carry different nuances, as if each word were a test to measure how far they can go. Adrian understands that regaining her trust will not be a quick path, but he is willing to take it. Helena, in turn, realizes that perhaps the greatest proof of character is not in someone's origin, but in what they choose to do when faced with adversity. Thus, amid the tensions and responsibilities of the workshop, a subtle shift in perspective emerges. The wound from the lie still hurts, but the remedy begins to work. The truth of actions, the weight of choices, and the sincerity of small gestures. The road to reconciliation is still long, but for the first time since the revelation, Helena allows herself to imagine that it might not be impossible. Edward Cole arrives at the workshop unannounced, accompanied only by one of his company directors, while the driver waits outside. The space, filled with scattered tools, the smell of oil and metallic noise, contrasts sharply with the luxurious offices he usually frequents. He observes silently for a few moments, unnoticed. What he sees surprises him. Adrian, in a grease-stained jumpsuit, bent over a workbench, focused on disassembling an engine. There are no traces of the arrogant young man who defied orders, only a man committed to learning and completing the task with dedication. When he is finally noticed, the entire workshop goes silent. Some employees glance at each other, unsure who this imposing man with a serious gaze is. Helena is the first to recognize the visitor. She had seen him at company events, even from afar, and immediately realizes he is not an ordinary client. Edward walks up to his son, who interrupts his work and, surprised, drops the screwdriver he was holding. The encounter is charged with tension. Adrian's heart races, not expecting to see his father in this space that, despite the hardships, had become part of his life. "I didn't imagine you'd find me like this," he says, wiping his hands on a cloth. Edward studies him from head to toe and responds, "Actually, this is exactly how I expected to find you." The colleagues watch in silence, not fully understanding the situation. Helena, attentive, senses that something bigger is at stake. Edward does not look at the others, but noticing her firm presence asks, "Are you the one supervising my son's work?" The murmur spreading through the workshop reveals the collective shock. Adrian is, after all, the heir of the tech network everyone had only known as a distant corporation. Helena stands tall, even in the face of the explicit revelation. "Yes, sir. He is part of the team like any other. He made mistakes, but he has shown effort to correct them." Edward looks at her with curiosity, and for the first time in a long while, a faint smile appears on his lips. He realizes her words are not flattery, but come from someone who truly witnessed the son's transformation. After a few minutes of observation, Edward asks to see the results of the work. Adrian, still insecure, shows the machine he was repairing. It is not perfect, but it works, and that is already a milestone for someone who previously did not know how to handle a tool properly. The father praises him in a restrained but genuine way. "I expected no less. Finally, you are learning that respect must be earned." Meanwhile, Helena is called by one of Edward's directors, who accompanied him from a distance. In front of everyone, she is informed that she will be promoted to a higher leadership position within the network, in recognition not only of her technical competence, but also her ability to handle complex situations and difficult people. The announcement surprises the colleagues, but also fills them with pride. Many applaud, others murmur in admiration. Helena thanks them, maintaining her firm posture, but cannot hide the emotion shining in her eyes. Adrian watches everything, feeling a mix of pride and melancholy. Pride in seeing Helena recognized, and melancholy for the emotional distance that still separates them. He knows his initial lie still weighs, but he also realizes that every step he takes toward change is witnessed by her, even if silently. At the end of the visit, Edward gathers the employees and thanks them for the way they welcomed and helped his son, even without knowing who he was. He acknowledges that the workshop environment fulfilled a role that neither his fortune nor his advice could achieve. teaching Adrian the value of effort and collective work. His words impress those present who now look at the young man with new eyes. Before leaving, Edward approaches Helena again. "Thank you for not giving up on him when so many would have," he says sincerely. Helena, surprised, responds, "I just did what was right. He deserved the chance to learn." The father then places a hand on his son's shoulder and concludes, "Life doesn't offer shortcuts, Adrian, and from what I see, you finally understand that." The visit ends with a mix of pride and reflection. For Adrian, it is more than parental approval. It is the certainty that his efforts have not gone unnoticed. For Helena, it is the confirmation that her dedication has not only transformed the workshop, but also contributed to the change of someone many considered irredeemable. In the days that follow, news of Edward's visit spreads. The workshop gains new prestige, the employees feel valued, and Helena, now in a position of prominence, continues to work with the same discipline. Adrian remains by her side, even without the same closeness as before, determined to prove he can be worthy not only of everyone's trust, but also of her heart. This moment marks the collective recognition of Adrian's transformation and Helena's value, both following paths that, although different, begin to converge again. The workshop, a stage of so many stumbles and lessons, becomes a living symbol that true change happens where least expected, when courage and persistence meet. The days after Edward Cole's visit mark a new phase in Adrian and Helena's lives, but they also reveal that matters of the heart are more complicated than any repair or task in the workshop. Adrian realizes that winning Helena back will not be achieved with effort and discipline alone, and he decides that if he wants to truly earn her trust and affection, he will need something grand, unexpected, and above all, sincere. He wants her to feel clearly and definitively that everything they experienced in the workshop was not just professional learning, but a genuine transformation. The idea comes on a sunny morning when Adrian observes the workshop full of customers and colleagues working. He begins to plan every detail of his gesture, trying to find a way to combine humor, surprise, and romance, reflecting who he has truly become. He decides that a proposal should be as unique as the journey that brought them there, simple in intention, but elaborate in execution. To do this, he improvises, using the resources available in the workshop. With the help of a few discreet colleagues, Adrian sets up an improvised screen using LED panels he finds in storage. Each panel must be adjusted, tested, and synchronized, and he spends hours experimenting with different combinations so that the final message appears perfectly. "Will you be my girlfriend?" He knows the gesture must be public but also personal, capable of touching Helena's heart in an unexpected way and, of course, full of his clumsy charm. When everything is ready, he gathers all the colleagues and customers present in the workshop to witness the moment. Nervousness is evident. Adrian trips over cables, knocks over a toolbox, and has to rush to fix the screen before Helena notices something is happening. She arrives to supervise the last tasks of the day, still unaware of what awaits her. Upon entering, she notices a different movement, contained smiles, and knowing glances among the colleagues. A chill runs down her spine, yet she cannot understand why. Adrian takes a deep breath, straightens his imaginary tie, and calls Helena to the center of the workshop, trying to hide his nervousness with an awkward smile. She eyes him with suspicion, crossing her arms, expecting some kind of explanation, or probably another blunder. When he activates the screen, an electric snap makes a light flicker, and the phrase appears gradually, letter by letter. "Will you be my girlfriend?" Helena widens her eyes, surprised, while Adrian, nervous, trips over a cable again, almost knocking part of the panel over. Silence falls for a few seconds until laughter and applause break out among the colleagues. Helena, trying to maintain composure, covers her mouth with her hand, still incredulous at the improvised and chaotic gesture, but full of sincerity. Adrian, sweating and red with nerves, runs to her, trying to explain that every detail was thought out to show that he has truly changed, that his effort in the workshop and his desire to earn her respect and trust were not just words. She takes a deep breath, balancing surprise, tenderness, and still a little suspicion. "You really planned all this? With these panels, all this chaos?" she asks, laughing softly, still in disbelief. Adrian responds, with the most sincere smile he can manage. "Yes, it's not perfect, but it's who I am now, and I want you to know that everything I feel is real." The clumsy gesture, full of mistakes, stumbles, and improvisations, breaks down all the remaining barriers between them. Helena realizes that Adrian is not trying to impress her with wealth, status, or skills he previously lacked, but with who he has truly become. Someone capable of humility, effort, and the courage to openly express feelings, even clumsily. Every detail of the preparation reflects his dedication and sincerity, and she cannot ignore what it means. After a few minutes of silence, she finally approaches, takes his hand, and smiles genuinely. "You really surprised me," she says, her voice full of emotion. Adrian, feeling victory in every fiber of his being, holds her hand tightly, as if confirming that all the stumbles, mistakes, and scoldings in the workshop culminated in this moment. The colleagues applaud again, while Helena allows herself to laugh and wipe away a tear of emotion. Adrian's gesture, though chaotic, becomes emblematic of their journey. There is no luxury or technical perfection, only authenticity and love. He has managed to turn every stumble, every failure, and every scolding into proof of transformation and commitment. That moment is not just a proposal, it is the celebration of everything they have lived together, of Adrian's growth, and of Helena's patience and firmness, which shaped not only his character, but also his capacity to love. From that day on, the dynamic between them changes forever. Helena approaches without fear, admits her feelings, and begins to share not only work, but also light-hearted moments, jokes, and camaraderie. Adrian, meanwhile, remains clumsy, but now every mistake is accompanied by a shared smile, every stumble turns into mutual laughter, and every gesture, no matter how small, reinforces the connection born between them. The chaotic proposal then becomes a milestone not only for the couple, but for the entire workshop. It represents that love, effort, humility, and courage can coexist with clumsiness and improvisation, transforming lives in unexpected and sincere ways. For Adrian and Helena, it is the beginning of a new phase, one in which both recognize that perfection is unnecessary when sincerity and heart are present. The wedding day finally arrives, and the workshop, stage of so many falls, scoldings, and lessons, transforms into an unexpectedly magical scene. The tools, benches, and cars scattered across the space gain new meaning. Not just objects of work, but silent witnesses of a journey of transformation, love, and companionship. Adrian and Helena prepare to celebrate what they have built together, not with luxury or ostentation, but with the simplicity that reflects their true selves. Adrian is nervous, but this time in a different way. He is no longer the arrogant heir, nor the clumsy newcomer. He is someone who has learned to value effort, patience, and dedication. His suit is slightly wrinkled, a sign that he still carries that awkward charm Helena knows so well, but his eyes reflect confidence and genuine emotion. He observes every detail of the space, from the improvised lights hanging from the ceiling to the simple flowers adorning the entrance, feeling that everything there represents not just the present, but the entire journey they have taken. Helena, in turn, is stunning in her elegant simplicity. Her dress is delicate, without exaggeration, perfectly reflecting her personality, strong, dedicated, and at the same time sensitive. Her hair is tied back with a few loose strands framing her face, and she looks at Adrian with a mixture of tenderness and joy. For weeks, she had imagined this moment in countless ways, but nothing compares to the reality she is living now. The person who transformed her world, with all his flaws and successes, is standing before her, ready to share his entire life. Guests begin to arrive, and the workshop fills with smiles, hugs, and curious glances. Many are colleagues who witnessed Adrian and Helena's journey, knowing every stumble and every victory that brought them here. Some of Adrian's family members, including Edward, are present, watching with pride, recognizing that his son has not only matured, but has learned values that no amount of money could buy. The atmosphere is filled with genuine joy, without exaggerated formalities, reflecting the essence of the couple. When the time for the ceremony arrives, everyone gathers around the central workbench, transformed into an improvised altar. Adrian waits, hands intertwined, taking deep breaths, while Helena walks toward him. Each step she takes is met with attentive silence from all, but also with a wave of emotion that fills the space. Their eyes meet, and in that instant, there is no past, no mistakes, no mistrust, only the certainty that they have arrived at the right moment. Together. The ceremony is simple, yet full of meaning. The words exchanged reflect each of their stories. Adrian speaks of learning, humility, and the importance of every moment spent alongside Helena. She, in turn, expresses admiration for the man he has become, for his sincerity and for never giving up on proving his love. There are no pompous speeches, only genuine emotion that touches every person present. When it comes time to say yes, Adrian smiles awkwardly, recalling all the times he stumbled in the workshop, but now each stumble feels like part of a choreography that led them to this moment. Helena smiles too, feeling that every scolding, every shared laugh, and every challenge overcome built the solid foundation for this commitment. The exchange of rings is met with applause and discreet tears of happiness, while colleagues clap, celebrating not only the couple's love but the unique journey they shared together. After the ceremony, the improvised celebration begins, with simple tables, homemade food, and music chosen by them. There is no extravagance, only shared joy. Adrian and Helena circulate among the guests, receiving hugs, congratulations, and compliments. Every smile, every gesture of affection reinforces the feeling that this day is more than a wedding celebration. It is the culmination of a journey of growth, overcoming challenges, and true connection. In a quiet moment, Adrian and Helena look at each other, hands intertwined, realizing how much they have changed since their first day in the workshop. He, once spoiled and clumsy, is now a man capable of facing challenges with courage, responsibility, and love. She, who has always been firm and unwavering, has allowed herself to open her heart, acknowledge vulnerabilities, and build a partnership based on respect and honesty. The workshop, once just a workplace, has become a symbol of the love that was born there, amidst scoldings, clumsiness, and unexpected moments of tenderness. The rest of the night is filled with laughter, shared stories, and a sense of belonging. Adrian and Helena dance awkwardly but happily, surrounded by everyone who witnessed their journey. Every stumble in the dance provokes laughter, reminding them that perfection is not necessary when there is love and companionship. What matters is the truth in each gesture, the sincerity of every smile, and the certainty that they have built something together that no obstacle could destroy. At the end of the night, as they look at the workshop, now quiet and illuminated by hanging lights, Adrian holds Helena's hand and whispers, "It was all worth it." She smiles, resting her head on his shoulder, and replies, "Every moment." The wedding, simple and true, symbolizes more than a marital bond. It celebrates the love that arose from mistakes, learning, and patience, now solidified in a partnership full of respect, friendship, and shared connection. The workshop, once a stage for humiliations and clumsiness, is now a scene of happiness, reminding everyone that the greatest transformations often occur in the most unexpected places. And so, Adrian and Helena begin their life together, ready to face any challenge, with genuine love and the certainty that they have built a story that will endure forever, marked by simplicity, sincerity, and shared happiness. And so ends another amazing story here on Enchanting Stories. If you were moved by Adrian and Helena, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join our ever-growing community. Leave a like and share this video to spread these enchanting stories. Tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. We want to hear from every corner of the world. Come laugh, get emotional, and experience adventures with us every day.